Hey everybody, it's Comic Crack, and I am back with a brand new camera. So I figured while I was playing around with the camera, I may as well shoot a little video and show you a couple more records that I stumbled upon recently. Um, yeah, this camera seems to be pretty good. There we go, look at that, it focuses near and then takes a second and focuses far. Let's hope it doesn't make any sounds. The very first camera when I started doing videos, every time it refocused itself, you could hear it on the video, so we'll see during playback. So anyway, I've been really getting back into music lately, and specifically electronic, electroacoustic, experimental noise, whatever you want to call it. Pretty much stuff that is down a different path from kind of the mainstream, and just really rediscovering love of a lot of this stuff. One of the guys that I've recently stumbled on is a guy by the name of Rashad Becker. And I think I have this in backwards. Anyway, I managed to find a bunch of, well, didn't manage to find, let's start again. So Rashad Becker is his name. He is apparently, I wasn't aware of him. He's apparently a kind of techno dance music DJ, and also works at a mastering plant for people that are mastering their albums, specifically electronic music. I don't think he deals just with electronic and dance music. I think he masters a lot of different bands. That's pretty annoying, that constant refocusing. But he had these ideas for some music in his mind for quite a while, apparently, from what I've heard in interviews with him. This kind of electroacoustic music where it's really, the kind of idea behind that genre is that it's a lot of kind of synthesizer recordings, it's a lot of electronic recordings, but it's also kind of acoustic sound recordings as well that then is highly processed, and then he presents them in a way that has this kind of sparseness to it that I find absolutely captivating. There's a few full performances of his out there on YouTube. He had two releases on a record label that I'm familiar with, Pan Records, I think from Europe. I don't actually own any other Pan releases, but I know of them through a guy, Andy Ortman, who was in not Pansonic, Panicsville, and also does recordings on his own and has his own record label. So I was familiar with Pan, and I had downloaded some stuff of theirs years ago just to kind of give it a listen, and there wasn't a lot that really did anything for me, so it kind of went by the wayside. But once I discovered this guy, I decided to jump on getting both of his Pan releases, and I'm so freaking glad that I did. Like I said, it's not music for everybody, and I totally understand that, but I think it's really, really incredible stuff. So this album is called, let me get the proper side here, Traditional Music of Notional Species Volume 1, and it's Pan number 34, and it's from 2013. And I also found his follow-up from the same seller. These were Discogs scores. So this is his follow-up. This is volume 2, and I'm not sure what year it is. It probably says inside, but I don't want to peel the whole thing apart. Really, really, really great albums. Highly, highly recommended for those of you out there that are a little more adventurous and maybe like that style of music anyway. Something that I haven't listened to yet. This is Andre Stordier, analog and digital electronic music from 1978 to 1980. A name that I'm not familiar with. I'm not familiar with his music at all. A friend of mine who works at one of the local record stores, yeah, that's pretty annoying, that focus thing, turned me on to this. He kind of takes care of the more out there music that they get in at the record shop. He's an electronic music composer and performer as well too, and I know him kind of from that world and have played shows with him once or twice. Really great guy, and always our tastes are very similar when it comes to a lot of this kind of thing. So recommendation from him is not a bad thing. And then down here you can see my first encounter with the music of Morton Subotnick, who I've talked about in the previous video, who I'm kind of, again, rediscovering how much I love Subotnick. So he drops his name a few times and how much of an influence he was on his recording. So for me, that name drop plus my friend suggesting it to me, it was kind of a no-brainer. I don't know if this was on, let's just have a look here. I think this was on a colored vinyl that looked pretty nice. So let's kind of ooh and ah over things here. Ooh, ah. It really is beautiful. You can see all that beautiful marbling inside there. Looks like bubble gum. Anyway, so that's that one. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to try something. I'm going to pause and try to turn off this tracking focus. Maybe that'll help it from stuttering here. I'll be right back. No, here we are back. I think I turned the tracking focus off, but I seem to think it's still going to do it. This is not boding well for this cheap camera. Luckily, I know the person, and he did say I could try it out for the weekend. Maybe we won't have this camera, because that's super fucking irritating. Anyway, we'll finish off this video, and then I can review it later. So this is the soundtrack for a movie called Satanic. I've never seen the movie. I do know the images. I am familiar with Phantomas and Diabolic and all those kind of things, and this was kind of an image that appears in that. It's male counterparts, the same kind of get-up, the same kind of thing. This is kind of an infamous movie. I just have never managed to get my hands on it. But there was this record label here, Daggard, I'm very familiar with. They have, I think I still have 2 box sets of Ennio Morricone soundtracks that they released that are just completely fantastic. And especially when I got them, it was movies that I'd never heard of, not soundtracks that you normally see. And even going through their catalog, they have a lot of really great stuff. This was a record store day release, limited to something. I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't remember. I didn't keep the front sticker. I don't really care about that sort of thing. I'm very, very excited to have a listen to this one. Can't remember. Was it on a colored vinyl? Let's just pull it out here. So, and then the inside you get the same image as the front, and then all the info there. Composed by Roberto Pregadio and Romano Mussolini. Neither name I'm familiar with. Not that I know every single name in Italian soundtrack composition, but you do tend to run into a lot of the same names. And even when you run into names like Bruno Nicolai, it is guys that have worked with guys like Morricone and have done things together. Alessandro Alessandrioni, I think his name is. That's a name you run into a lot. And it's all just this era and this style of soundtrack really, really appealed to me. There's always a nice mix of some stuff that's a little more jazzy. They weren't afraid to throw stuff in that was a little more experimental, or experimenting with like tape loops and all sorts of strange sounds for more of the dramatic bits of the movie, especially when you're dealing with like the giallos that I talked about before. There's a lot of room for experimentation. And then, of course, who doesn't love the classic spaghetti western type of soundtrack? So I think this record is more on the jazzy side of things. Very, very excited to have this. I can't wait. I think tonight might be the night that I put that one on the turntable. And then finally, A couple of releases from Bandcamp. Again, I've talked about Bandcamp before. And first we have a clear vinyl, and you can see a little bit of the marbling in there maybe. More on the electronic music kick. I don't, again, two names that I'm not familiar with, but I heard some samples and really, really liked it. And since then, I've listened to more of these albums at work and loved them. The bloopin' and the bleepin'. It's all about electronic music lately for T. Fuller. Ricardo Sinigaglia. I am so sorry butchering people's names. Trust me, with a name like Terrence that nobody can ever spell properly, I am a bit sensitive to that sort of thing. Beautiful looking record. Can't wait to hear that. And finally, Squadra Omega with an album called Materia Oscura with a die-cut center. I believe this was it a colored record as well? Oh no, it was a colored record. This one is a beautiful outer sleeve, heavy duty, with an amazing looking LP. Again, beautiful stuff. Experimental music. Dig it. I'm loving it. I've started recording some pieces myself, actually. I'm kind of knee deep in recording and putting pieces together. Last night I spent about, 3 hours on the computer cutting and EQing and getting things ready for samplers. I've got some, again, as I spoke about before, I've got a bunch of ideas floating around in my head as far as something I want to put together and maybe perform live here in town. I've got all the gear. My sampler that I thought was broken, I just did a factory reset on it, and that seems to have fixed the problem, so thank God for that. I've had that sampler, this Chaos Pad sampler, for years and years and years now, and the last time I used it about a year ago, the inputs weren't working correctly. The volume was really, really low, recording sound onto it. You can put stuff on a little SD card, but I want the whole thing to work properly. So now it works properly, which is great. That means that my realizations of some live performance, I think, are going to come true fairly quickly. Everything seems to be coming together really nicely. The next step now for me is to load all the samples on the sampler and kind of have my setup downstairs and try to put some things together and see what it's like performing these pieces live. Because I would like to record them live as well too, instead of putting them together piece by piece on the computer. I'd like to kind of have a set worked through and then do a live recording of it, and then maybe go out and do a couple of shows and present it in a bigger space where I can play with volume as well on top of it. Yeah, I'm still reading, just not as much. This really does suck you in. Anybody who has played music, anything creative whatsoever, especially for me, I find that I really have to pick my times. There's been a few nights I've wanted to work on stuff, but it's already been so late that I know if I start working on something, I won't be going to bed until 4 in the morning. Because once I get locked in, I really do get locked in. I really do kind of sit and focus, and I don't want to do anything else. Which is great. I love it, but I do still have to get up in the morning to go to work. So I'm hoping for a couple of days off. We'll see. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, everybody. Sorry for the babbling there at the end, but try out some of these records. Have a look at things. Let me know how everybody's doing. Those of you who are record collectors as well, is there anything you guys have been picking up? I'm kind of around watching videos, but again, I'm watching a lot of electronics videos and how to build and how to solder and DIY kits and ideas and things like that. So I'm just not participating as much as I once was. Doesn't mean that I'm not here. I am here. just not paying as much attention as I usually do. Anyway, that's enough. Stop talking. Okay, we'll talk to you.